we can maybe give some quick takeaways on that because the Lions played really well, obviously.
100%.
And I feel like a lot of their coordinator question marks, we don't have those same question marks no more. The offense has been awesome for 2 straight games. And Lamar Jackson took the second most sacks he's taken in his career against this Lions defense. And I think PFF charted him with most of them being his fault.
5 of them.
5 of them being his fault?
What the fuck?
What? He needed the number. I had the number in my head. 5 of them.
But I think the most concerning thing with the Ravens right now
Stop looking at me.
is that they're tied first for the most points allowed this season. They're 32nd in run defense success rate. Last year, they were second. And I don't know if you guys have seen what Marlon Humphrey posted on social media.
That shit fried me.
He's wearing like the towel bonnet too.
Marlon Humphrey just posted after the game today, a day after, and just said, I don't know what happened last night. I don't have no answers. I don't know how it could get fixed. Yeah, man, I just don't know. I just don't know. He was like, man, I just don't know. And people were kind of, on him about it because they're saying, why are you posting this? We saw some interaction with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the sideline that maybe you could make it deeper than what it is. Derrick Henry has fumbled in every game this year.
Brutal.
So how do you guys, what's your temperature on the Ravens right now based on what you're seeing?
It's interesting. Derrick Henry has fumbled twice in the fourth quarter in important games. I don't remember if he fumbled in the fourth against the Cleveland Browns. I know he fumbled in that game. But specifically the Buffalo game, all they needed was a first down or 2, and that game was probably over.
That one was brutal.
Yeah, Ed Oliver makes a great play on the ball. And then this same play, Detroit makes a great play on the ball. They give him the fumble. I thought this game defensively for that front four for Detroit, they were making some plays. I think they were able to get at Lamar. Lamar felt like to me he was being a little too dancey back there. A lot of times he was getting sacked. It was a little bit his fault. I felt like this new phrase we're using now, he did leave some meat on the bone for sure. He made a couple plays where he tried to run, and Detroit was able to surround him, stop him from getting maybe 10 to 15 yards. So they were really huge in the run game, especially on defense. I thought their offense, it took a little minute to get going, the run offense, but once it got going, it was going. I thought David Montgomery set an immediate tone when he got in. Gibbs struggled, but once, the hole started opening up, Gibbs started to play really well. Montgomery was playing really well. And then you saw Jared Goff just have a lot of time in the pocket and just dissect that Ravens defense. And I think Detroit, for them having a new offensive line, them having new OCs, it was going to take them some time to, get it together and flourish. And that Chicago Bears game was exactly what they needed to kind of tune everything up. They beat the brakes of Chicago. They come into Baltimore, and it's like they don't miss a beat, And I feel like this Detroit team, the talent is still there, specifically on offense. You have one of the best, if not the best, running back tandem in football. You still have Amon-Ra. You have J-Mo, he was getting them going early last game. Sam Laporta was huge in the little short intermediate game. You have that type of talent. And Jared Goff, if you give him time, he could be an excellent quarterback. I think Detroit is a team that just showed you last night that they're still a team that's going to be one of the top teams in the NFC, in the league. They put, maybe not fear, but they just gave you that wake-up call. Like week 1, it's not going to happen like that all the time. We're still a great team. For Baltimore, don't like that Marlon Humphrey posted that. Lamar and Derrick Henry, I'm not really going to overthink it too much because I do feel like Derrick Henry knows he has to be better. I think specifically week 1 going insane and then you just fumble the ball like that. This game, Aiden Hutchinson coming from behind you and hitting the ball out your hands. You just have to be more aware of your surroundings. You have to be more aware of, just where you're at in the clutch. What do you need? And I think he'll be better. He's been great this year for the most part. Lamar, he's been great. I think last game was just, like I said, a lot of dancing in the pocket. That offense, it's elite. I'm not going to say it's not. I think the defense is going to be the bigger issue for the Baltimore Ravens just because I don't think they're in sync. I don't think their linebackers and their corners and their second and their safeties are on the same page. And I think that can cause a lot of, breakdowns in the coverage and stuff like that. And plus, They didn't have Nnamdi. Is that his name? Yes. Madubuike. Yes, they didn't have him, and I think he's a huge part of their defense. That was a big loss. I think that was one of the reasons that Detroit was able to run the ball so effectively. It started to wear and tear on that Baltimore Ravens defense. But I still feel like Baltimore is maybe not the team to beat, but they're still one of the 2-3 best teams in the AFC. They're still one of the most talented teams in football. Detroit, they just put themselves back on the map.
I'm trying not to overreact because when we came in and did the pick'ems and I spoke about this game, I said that there was more pressure on Baltimore to win this game than it was on Detroit. Again, tempering expectations for Detroit based on all their losses this offseason, and especially after the week 1 loss. I don't feel like there was as much pressure on them in this game as opposed to the Baltimore Ravens, who needed to continue to set a tone for the rest of the season. You blew it to a week 1 versus the Buffalo Bills in a game that you were well in position to secure and walk away with the W. You absolutely gagged. Week 2, you come out the gates, you don't look the strongest, but then you ended up putting a decent beating to a Browns team. You come away with a nice W. I wanted you to come out and set a tone and win this game and look dominant in that fashion. Complete opposite happened. And I want to give nothing but praise to the Detroit Lions. Shout out to the interior of that offensive line too. Tate Ratledge, he had himself an amazing game yesterday. And again, that is going to be a question for this Lions team all season. How is that interior offensive line going to do, especially with all the losses that they had coming into the offseason? You lose elite pieces. What was it, Pro Bowler that you had in Taylor Decker for majority of his career? He's the one that retired, I'm pretty sure, right?
Frank Ragnow retired.
Frank Ragnow, excuse me.
And they lost Kevin Zeitler to the Titans.
So you have all these subtractions to what was the best offensive line or one of the best offensive lines of football. That's going to be a talking point for the Lions all year long. The fact that Tate Ratledge had as great of a game as he did, and then Montgomery looking in form and the most elusive that he's looked in some time. And of course, Jahmyr Gibbs being Jahmyr Gibbs, but the constant disrespect year in, year out that Amon-Ra St. Brown gets, it genuinely needs to end. Because in every situation you need him to be big, more often than not, he rises to the occasion. And last night's game, with the game on the line, 4th and 2, this could put the game away. A great conversion. Marlon Humphrey is interfering with him at the line of scrimmage because he knows he got beat really badly. Right. And then on top of it, you make a strong contested catch.
So he didn't know what happened.
They were putting BTJ over him.
Nuts. Fucking nuts. Believe that?
Who?
And then also the touchdown that he had too. I mean, this guy has some of the best hands in football. He's one of the safest receivers in football, yet he's constantly disrespected.
He's like this era's Hans Ward.
He's better.
Hines Ward genuinely wishes he is as good as Amon-Ra is right now.
He's better.
However,
how 2-point MVP.
Oh my
disrespectful.
God.
Again, I'm trying not to overreact to the Ravens, but this defense is starting to concern me. The fact that Madubuike did not play, I'm giving them some leeway in this game because obviously he's a huge difference maker to their defensive line. But you get gashed week 1. Week 2, going up against the Browns, we're not anticipating much. But week 3, you get absolutely torched. And I get it. The Lions are one of the best offenses in football. But we watched what a good defense can make the Detroit Lions look like. And we saw that in week 1. Week 2, they rearranged everything. They put belt to the Bears. The Bears defense isn't what it is, obviously what it has been in years past, but they embarrassed them. And they also embarrassed the Ravens, all things considered. A lot of credit to the Detroit Lions. And Riv, I said it last show and you weren't here. Thank you. Because I almost overreacted way too much off week 1 and you kept me on pace. This team's still a force to win the division for sure. It's going to be a 2-team race. The Minnesota Vikings.
They have Carson Wentz now.
I have my concerns about that rush defense. Truthfully,
it's really just the quarterback. I'll be honest.
And then of course the quarterback position too. But I look at this Detroit
Carson
team
as
it continues to get healthier and healthier on the defensive side of the ball. That's going to get cleaned up. On offensively, these last 2 weeks, they've looked as good as any team. So I'm trying not to talk about the Ravens, even though they really disappointed me. Yeah. But the Lions really showed they're back. And that week 1 performance, it matters because it's a division game, no doubt. But what they've done in week 2 and week 3, it has really made me think about week 1 a lot less.
Yeah, I'll talk about the Ravens. It was a bad game from Lamar. I know you can look at the numbers, and the numbers looked great. If you just read the numbers, 142 passer rating, it's going to bump up that all-time ranking.
Well, he stat-padded like he usually does.
The last drive definitely stat-padded a little bit.
Is he the Russell Westbrook of the NFL?
Whoa, relax.
The only reason I don't like the stat pad last drive is because they had 3 timeouts going into it.
Yeah, no, stat padding is not right, but the defense is playing very conservative. They're letting you get things in chunks,
was over.
Right? I wouldn't say over because it's a 2-score game, onside kick. I wouldn't say it's over.
Bro.
I wouldn't say you have 3 timeouts. I wouldn't say it's over, but Detroit is very obviously letting you get yards. They just don't want to give up the big play. But Lamar, like the numbers wise, 142 passer rating, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 70% completion percentage. All those numbers look great. 7 sacks is brutal. And most of them were terrible. He lost 55 yards on those sacks. Like, this wasn't just, you lose a handful of yards here and there. 55 yards. He lost some, like,
55 is
real
5 were his fault.
game-changing type of plays. So, even though the numbers are great, I did not think this was far from Lamar's best game, even though, he's a big reason that they were still in it. The defense is really what concerns me, because you're not going to go up against Detroit and the Bills every single week, right? I think you look at their numbers, it's the worst in the league across the board. Part of that, I think, is the defense has some issues. The other part is you probably played 2 of the top 5-6 offenses in football the first 3 weeks of the season. So they're probably going to end up somewhere in the middle. They're not going to be elite like they were a few years ago, but I don't think they're going to be the worst unit in football. But what really concerns me is 2 of the last 3 weeks, they've gone away from Derrick Henry, and I know he's fumbled, and maybe this isn't the best time to use it, but in Buffalo, the second quarter he has 100 rushing yards. In the second half, he barely sees the ball. He ends this game with 11, 13 carries, where you saw in the first quarter, he had a 25-yard touchdown, and he was able to run the ball. They've just gotten away from it in the second half, and of course you have Lamar, you want him to have the ball in his hands, and more often than not, I'm fine with it. But it's just something I've realized over the first 3 weeks is they've been very quick to kind of get away from the run game and get away from Derrick Henry. And listen, you have one of the best quarterbacks in football. If you want to be aggressive and throw the ball, that's fine. That's all dandy and whatnot. But if your defense is going to struggle this much, if they cannot stop them, it would be nice to at least try to, control some clock, be able to have some more longer methodical drives down the field, at least give that defense a rest. There was a drive that Detroit had. It was 98 yards. It was 9 minutes. The defense was gassed by the end of it. So I think Baltimore, again, they're 1-2. I'm with you, Riv. I still think it's one of the best teams in the AFC. But the defense has to improve, because we don't really care what you do in the regular season, right? If they, go 15-2 the rest of the way, great. If they claw their way 10-7, their wild card, whatever. No one really cares what you do in the regular season. Once the playoffs come, you're going to have to go up against Buffalo. You're going to have to go up against Kansas City. You're going to have to go up against elite quarterbacks and great offenses. So one way or another, the defense has to get figured out. I feel like all in all, the offense, it's going to be fine. They're number 1 offense right now, number 1 in points per game. They've been able to move the ball and score points. We're not really worried about that. But the defense isn't going to be special. It's not going to be great. I don't anticipate it to be an elite unit. You just got to hope it can come a bit back to the mean and be, an average to above average unit.
I think they have the talent. I think Matabuke not playing it hurts.
And Van Noy was that too.
True.
They were weak inside, and the Lions took advantage of that. I just think that in both the Lions and the Bills game, Derrick Henry has had a fumble that has halted all momentum. I don't know the exact number of sacks Lamar Jackson took after that fumble, but it did feel like he took a good amount once they were down 2 touchdowns and he had to throw them back into the game. I think my major takeaway from the game with the Ravens side, the Lions side, I agree with you. They're going to be a great team. With the Ravens is that all 3 teams in the AFC that we look at as the top of the AFC have serious roster problems. I think the Bills might be the one that we are most confident about, top to bottom, but they don't have an elite wideout. But they have an elite offensive line and an elite running back and an elite run game, an elite quarterback. Their defense is also very susceptible.
Shit, terrible.
The Ravens defense is the same way. The Chiefs defense is underwhelming compared to years past. The offense is the most underwhelming of all these 3 groups because their skill positions are terrible and they're waiting on Rashee Rice to return. All 3 of them have major issues, but there's only one team that's getting a major reinforcement, and that's Rashee Rice. And when Rashee Rice comes back with Xavier Worthy, that can swing things in the Chiefs' favor. Mm-hmm. And the Ravens, I think they can get this turned around too, because I think for them, a lot of it is communication issues. They have the talent. It's clear. And if Mike McDonald was coaching his unit, I have no doubt that they'd be towards the top of the league right now. But I think the change in DC, this defense goes from a historical defense to last year a bit underwhelming, and then this year very underwhelming. Last year, they were one of the worst secondaries in football to start the year. Now, they're one of the worst run defenses in football to start the year.
One of the worst everything.
So it feels like, both sides, they're flipping. They're flipping what they're bad at each year. And I just don't think that with the talent they have, it should be that way. And we also have to acknowledge the regression of Roquan Smith, who doesn't look like a perennial all-pro linebacker right now. He was the middle and the glue of that defense, and he was nowhere to be found against the run, and even last year he struggled in coverage.